Welcome back to The Distressed Princess. In today's video, I'm counting down my top 5 favorite fall DIYs. But I'm not counting anything that I did this year. I'm going deep into the Distressed Princess archives to find some of my favorite things that maybe you haven't seen before. I got many years' use out of this one.
And the first thing that I'm going to make is a garland. And for this, you will need some book pages, some leaves, some jute twine, something that you can use to trace around to make a leaf pattern. You'll need some raffia, or in this case, I'm using a Dollar Tree hula skirt, and some fairy lights. And I'm using Bright Town's Firecracker fairy lights. The first step in this project is to make your book page leaves. And so I'm using this wooden leaf from the Dollar Tree to trace around. I have multiple book pages that is underneath of this leaf, and I'm going to try to cut them all out at once. I was able to cut 10 pages at once with just my regular crafting scissors. How many you need will depend on how long and how full you want to make your garland. I just made a ton of them to be on the safe side. Next, you need to work on your leaves, and you need them to all be separated and individual, so cut them apart if they're still on their stems. Now you begin layering your book pages on top of your fake leaves. And I have two main colors of leaves that I'm using, orange ones and red ones. And I decided that on the orange ones, the book page will go on top of the leaf, and on the red ones, the book page will go underneath the leaf. I think this gives character and good variety to the garland. Next, you need to cut the length of jute twine that you'll need for your garland, and the way that I determined that was by the length of my firecracker lights, which was 9 feet. So I just cut my jute string to the length of the lights, adding a couple extra inches so that I can have loops on the ends if I want to hang it. Then begin attaching your leaves to your jute string. I alternated my red leaves and my orange leaves, and I attached them with a stapler. I promise you won't even notice the staples once you get this all put together and with the pretty lights shining. So far, your garland should look like this, and it's already shaping up pretty cute. To make it more full, I'm going to add some strands of this hula skirt, or you can use raffia, but I really believe that the hula skirt strands are stronger than regular raffia, making it easier to tie. So I just tied some strands of that in between each leaf. Then finally, add the lights. To secure the garland to the lights, I just used the jute string that I left on each end to tie around each end of the lights. And in between, I just kind of wrapped the lights around the garland as I went along. And then it's finished. And this is my favorite garland that I've ever made. I'll be using this year after year.
Number 4 was a Pinterest DIY.
So here I have 2 of their brown shiplap plank signs, and I also picked up 4 of their wood slat signs, which these have hangers on them, which I'll have to cut off. But if you can find some of their wood slats, like in the package, that would work too. And then 4 of the jumbo craft sticks. So the first step is to remove all the hangers and tags off of everything. Then we're going to glue the 2 boards together using some super glue wood glue, and I get this at the Dollar Tree too. Try to make as thin a line as possible so you don't get a lot of glue oozing out the edges. Then put the 2 boards together. Now this isn't going to be a strong enough hold for it to hang or be a good decoration, so you're going to have to use these large popsicle sticks or jumbo craft sticks, whatever you want to call them, and you'll use the wood glue to glue those to the back like you see me doing here, and that will make the sign more stable. While the main part of the sign is drying, now we need to work on the wood slats. And so the first thing I'm going to need to do is fill in those holes where the hanger was. If you're able to find the wood slats that's in the package at Dollar Tree, of course you can skip this step. And I did have to do a little light sanding to smooth out some of the splintery pieces around where the hangers were. And I used the lightweight spackling that you get at the Dollar Tree, and I just used my fingers to fill in those holes. When the spackle is dry, sand until smooth. Now they're ready for painting, and I'm going to do 2 slats that are white with a gray distressing, and then one slat is going to be an orange color and another slat is going to be a yellow color. And I already had pre-planned what slats and what wording was going to go on each slat, and I wrote it on a piece of notebook paper so I knew I could keep it straight what colors I was painting what and what words I wanted to go what. And I'm going to be using my Cricut to make some decals, so then I knew what color vinyl I wanted to use for each word. So here I was trying to figure out the spacing before I put down the farmer's market decal, and I wanted to leave enough room that I could put something at the top like a bow or something. I really thought I left enough room, but I could have stood to put that farmer's market even a little lower on the sign. And I wanted the vinyl letters to kind of look like they were painted on the sign, so where there are slats for the shiplap, I took my utility knife and I cut through the vinyl and kind of pushed it into those slats so that it looked a little more realistic. And then I used hot glue to attach all the signs to the big sign. I decided to make a messy bow for the top, so I'm using some burlap and some buffalo check ribbon, and in the big size and the small size, and some of this raffia that's really a hula skirt from the Dollar Tree. I got out of frame while I was making the messy bow, but it's really easy. You just cut several pieces of ribbon or burlap and this raffia, and then you crisscross them all at different angles, and then you tie them together with a piece of jute string, or you can use a zip tie. When I tried it on my sign, that's when I realized that I could have stood to make my decal a little lower because the bow was hiding part of it. So I decided I would trim up the bow so that it would fit a little better and my wording wouldn't be so hidden. And I used hot glue to glue it to the top. I used some more jute string to put back through the original hanger holes, and that was it. So I made a couple of mistakes with mine. My bow was too big and my farmer's market isn't quite centered like it should be, but I still am really happy with how my sign turned out, and you guys can take this inspiration and make one too.
Number 3 was most fun. It was the first time I ever attempted to do a spooky ghost painting. Now time for my spooky painting, and I just wanted to pick out a painting in the thrift store that had a house. I've been looking for one that had a house because I wanted my little ghost to have a house to live in. So I'm not a painter, but I can give you some tips on how I did my spooky painting. And this is a hack that I learned, I don't even remember where, probably a TikTok. You take a piece of steel wool and you dip it into your different various fall colors, and then you can go right on top of the trees and it'll turn them into fall leaves. Isn't that cool? And you can also use this technique to paint your own trees. You don't have to be going over the top of a painting. You can make your own trees this way. So it's a really cool effect and it works nicely. Same goes for any flowers that are in the painting. I wanted to turn them more into fall color flowers. So I'm taking a small brush and I'm just dabbing color onto the existing flowers. So it's just kind of painting over what's already there, and it's relaxing and fun. The ghosts are really easy. I don't see how anybody can really go wrong painting a ghost. Just do your best to do what looks like a person under a sheet. That's what I had in my mind when I painted my ghost, that it was just a sheet draped over a person. So my ghost has arms, and there's going to be a second ghost you'll see, and there'll be like holding hands kind of. And you play around with your shading. I am using a parchment color, so it's not stark white, and the shading is with a gray color. So I kind of did an outline of the ghost and then put where I thought like the wrinkles or the folds rather would be in the sheet. If you make a mistake like I did right here, just go back over it with some white paint and try again. These kind of paintings are really fun because you can put anything you want in them. Your imagination is the limit. So I've got a ghost on a swing. Then I was working on my bats and it just wasn't going well. So I had to paint over those, and I decided while I was painting over those, I would just go ahead and make the sky a gray fall color. So I've mixed up some white and gray on my little very messy paint palette, which is actually a pretty dish that I use for a paint palette. It wipes right off with Dawn Power Spray, so I'm not wasting paper plates all the time with my paints. Anyhow, after I repainted my sky, then I went back and put some more fall leaves on the trees. This time when I painted my bats in, I had a picture on my phone off to the side. I also added some spider webs and some pumpkins and a hoot owl. I was most proud of number 2. It's a small $2 or $3 pumpkin. And I picked these 3 that were $3 each and were similar in size. This is my inspiration, a picture of some painted up pumpkins online. Actually, I think these are ceramic pumpkins, but I thought maybe I could just paint these faces on some real pumpkins. To make the woodland critter faces, I'm using pumpkin orange, beachcomber beige, milk chocolate, country gray, pewter gray, black, and white. I'm gonna guess that this is personal preference, but I decided to remove the stems from my pumpkin because I thought it would be easier to put the little flowers on the top of their heads without working around the stem. Then I cleaned each pumpkin off really well. Now, I used to do some pretty good pumpkin carving, but my hands hurt me so bad working with those little tools nowadays that I decided to give pumpkin painting a shot. Now, these are really easy faces, but I wanted to try drawing them on paper first just to make sure I knew how I was going to paint them on the pumpkin. And this is my very first try at it, so be nice. I'm gonna start with the raccoon little critter pumpkin, and so I'll be using my country gray acrylic paint to paint the entire pumpkin. I had no idea how well the paint was going to stick to the pumpkin or not stick to the pumpkin, so I am testing this out for all of you who have never painted pumpkins before either. So this is just apple barrel acrylic craft paint, and this is the first coat going on, and it goes on okay. And here's the second coat going on, and it goes on pretty well, but there were a few places where the first coat wanted to peel up on me. So in order to combat that, I decided on the other 2 pumpkins, I would spray them first with sealer before I painted them. And this is the matte sealer that I used. I sprayed 1 coat on the other 2 pumpkins outside and left them to dry while I worked on my raccoon pumpkin. I chose to begin with the mouth area, which is going to be white paint, And I also decided to find a center line on the pumpkin that would be like the center of the face. It'll help me keep things symmetrical. Now paint a white half circle at the bottom of the pumpkin that will be the mouth area. Keep your heat gun or your hair dryer handy so that you can dry each layer as you go along. Now I'm using the darker pewter gray to paint on the mask that goes on the raccoon's face. Using your center line as a reference, go just a little bit to the right of that and draw a straight line going up, then curve it up and swoosh it out. Then going along the edge of the white circle, make another line swooshed out to connect the other one. And then just fill it in. Remember to dry each part before moving on for two reasons: so that you don't get your hand in it and smear your work, and secondly, because you're going to have to use a second layer of paint to make it really look nice. Then repeat the same shape over on the other side. And here's the second layer of that color going on. Next, use some black paint to draw a little round jelly bean nose, and then black circles for eyes. I experimented around with different kinds of brushes, and this is actually a watercolor brush that I thought might be easier to draw things with, but my favorite brush to use in all of these pumpkin paintings was a very small, super fine tip detail brush. Now paint one black line in the center right under the nose to be the mouth. This is the small detail brush that I liked, and I'm using it to put some little white dots in the black circles and a little white detail line on the top side of the nose. My inspiration picture had some little white lines on the raccoon's head that I guess is fur. I thought it was really cute, so I'm adding those in too. And that's all the painting for the raccoon. Not too bad, huh? Their faces are painted on. They need ears and decorations. And the ears are made out of felt. So you can see I've got gray and black for the raccoon, orange and white for the fox, and brown and pink for the bear. To make sure that I have both ears the same shape and size, I like to fold my felt in half. And so when I cut out one shape, I'm actually getting two. So now I have two raccoon ears, and I'm cutting out the same shape but smaller with the black felt to go in the center. Next, I hot glued all the centers to my ears, the critter's ears. And this is the part that I was most worried about, and this is the one that gave me the most trouble. Was I thought I would hot glue these ears on. I wasn't sure if the hot glue was going to stick to a pumpkin, a painted pumpkin at that. And sure enough, I had intuition that said it wasn't going to work, and it didn't. So I thought maybe just not regular glue, so I got out my Gorilla hot glue. Yeah, that didn't work either. So then my next idea was to take some straight pins and pin the ears to the pumpkin, and I'm not really worried too much about the pins showing because I'm going to have flowers on the tops of their heads, so they're going to be covered. I'm using just whatever Dollar Tree flowers were in my stash, and I decided I would try to poke them down into the pumpkin kind of like the straight pins. So I needed to get to the wire. So I used my scissors to strip away the plastic and get down to the wire, and that way I was easily able to put the flowers down into the pumpkin. I added some greenery to the flowers, and I think it all turned out pretty good. I had a few little nicks in my paint on the raccoon, so I painted those back over. And if these are going to go outside, you're definitely going to need to seal them so your paint doesn't just wash away in the rain. But mine are staying inside, so they're done. I used white flowers for the bear and pink flowers for the fox. And I love how my creations turned out, and I had a lot of fun making them. And now I'm not intimidated to paint my pumpkins, and you shouldn't be either, because these shapes to make these faces were really easy and simple, and it might just take a little practice, but I know you can make them too. Now I chose number 1 because it saves so much money. I wanted to make a nice fall floral arrangement in the silver container. So I'm going to repurpose these outdoor greenery picks that I bought from Temu. They're falling apart. They were faded, and I think I just pulled a dirt dauber's nest out of this one. So I'm going to take them outside and I'm going to spray paint them with nutmeg spray paint or some brown color. Anything brown I'm sure would work, or even a coppery color might be cool. But I'm going to spray paint these bushes and you're going to see the most astonishing transformation. And this was free to me because I already had the paint and the pick, and it's going to be the perfect thing for our silver container. It's a sunny day. The spray paint was dry within 30 minutes. And then I came back outside and turned everything over the opposite direction and painted that side. And guys, look at this gorgeous fall bush. And it looks so natural because where the spray paint doesn't get and there's still some green, it looks like it's a dying back bush. So I just am loving this nutmeg spray paint. I probably got it at Walmart. I can't remember. It's been hanging out at my house for a long time. And that was just the start. I thought some fall leaves would be nice in the white sifter, but of course they are very brightly colored. So I'm going to see if the same trick will work with these leaves as it did the greenery. And here they are back inside and dry, and they do go very well with the greenery that was spray painted the same color. But look how much lighter it is because the undertone had yellows and oranges instead of green. But they still look like more like dead fall leaves, and they do have a crunch factor because they are spray painted. And I've been spray painting my flowers and leaves ever since. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!